The lawyer's words didn't make sense. Mrs. Rousseau left you a vineyard in Napa Valley. Your cousins got the estate in France, the trust fund, the cars. You got land. Simone's cousin Laurent had smirked. Enjoy your dirt farm, cousin. But that was 4 weeks ago. For weeks earlier, Simone stood on the sidewalk outside the brownstone where she'd lived for 7 years, watching Marcus load her belongings into trash bags. Not boxes, trash bags. Her clothes, her books, the photo albums from before everything fell apart. All of it crammed into black plastic like garbage. You don't have to do this, she said quietly. Marcus didn't look up. Yeah, I do. I pay for this place. I pay for everything. And I'm done pretending you contribute anything to this relationship. Simone's hands clenched at her sides. She'd worked throughout their marriage, data entry from home, freelance translation work, night shifts at a 24-hour pharmacy. But Marcus made 6 figures as a consultant. Next to his income, hers looked like lunch money. The divorce lawyer he'd hired had made sure the judge saw it that way too. The settlement gave you $8,000 and your personal belongings. That's what you're getting. He tied off a bag and dropped it at her feet. There, you're getting generous. I could have kept the wedding gifts. Simone looked at the bags. 7 years of marriage reduced to trash bags on a sidewalk. Her bank account held $127.43. She had no apartment, no family in the States, and nowhere to go. Can I at least? No. Marcus finally met her eyes. Whatever you're going to ask, the answer is no. We're done, Simone. You got what you deserved. He went inside and locked the door. Simone sat on the curb between the trash bags and cried. It was 3 p.m. on a Tuesday. People walked past without stopping. A woman in business clothes crossed the street to avoid her. Simone didn't blame her. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd lost everything. Her phone buzzed. An email from a law firm in Paris. Madame Simone Rousseau, we regret to inform you of the passing of your great-aunt Marguerite Rousseau. Please contact our office regarding her estate. Simone stared at the email. Taunt Marguerite. She hadn't seen her in 15 years, not since Simone's mother died. Marguerite had been wealthy, eccentric, the family member everyone whispered about. She'd never married, lived alone in a chateau in Bordeaux, and allegedly despised most of her relatives. Simone had loved her. She called the number in the email. A brisk assistant told her the will reading was scheduled for Friday in Paris. Can you attend? Simone checked her bank account again. $127.43. A flight to Paris cost at least $600. I don't think. We can arrange a video call, the assistant said. Madame Rousseau specified that all beneficiaries must be informed of their inheritance. I'm a beneficiary? Yes. Friday, 2 p.m. Paris time. I'll send the link. The video call connected in a Starbucks bathroom where Simone had been sitting for 3 hours, nursing a single coffee and using the Wi-Fi. On screen, a severe-looking lawyer sat at a conference table. Behind him, Simone could see her cousins, Laurent, Celine, and Amélie, all dressed in expensive black. Mademoiselle Rousseau, the lawyer began. Marguerite Rousseau's will is as follows. To Laurent Rousseau, I leave the chateau and surrounding estate. To Celine Rousseau, I leave the art collection and trust fund established in 1982. To Amélie Rousseau, I leave the collection of antique automobiles and investment portfolio. Simone watched her cousins try to look solemn. Laurent was already grinning. The chateau alone was worth millions. To Simone Rousseau, here it comes, Simone thought. A token amount. A piece of jewelry. The family's way of saying she hadn't been completely forgotten. I leave the property known as Domaine Rousseau, located in Napa Valley, California. 38 acres, including all structures, equipment, and inventory. Silence. Wait, Laurent said. California property? That worthless vineyard she'd bought in the 90s. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. It is currently listed as undeveloped agricultural land. The structures are reportedly in disrepair. Celine laughed. Oh, Simone. I'm so sorry. That place has been abandoned for decades. Marguerite bought it on a whim and never did anything with it. At least you got something, Amélie added, her voice dripping with pity. The lawyer slid a document across the table toward the camera. The deed will be mailed to your address on file. Are there any questions? Simone's address on file was the brownstone. Marcus's brownstone. Can you send it to a different address? She gave them the Starbucks address. The manager had been kind, letting her sit for hours. Maybe they'd hold mail for a few days. That night, Simone slept in a women's shelter on a cot that smelled like bleach. Her trash bag sat in a storage locker she'd rented with her last $30. She lay awake listening to other women breathe and cry and snore, and thought about 38 acres of worthless California dirt. The deed arrived 6 days later, forwarded to the shelter. Simone opened it sitting on her cot. The paper was thick, official, covered in French and English legal language. Domaine Rousseau. 38.4 acres. Napa Valley, California. Delivered free and clear to Simone Marie Rousseau. There was a note in Marguerite's handwriting, tucked behind the deed. They will tell you it's worthless. They told me the same thing. Prove them wrong. Simone held the deed and felt something shift. She had nothing. No home, no marriage, $43 in her bank account. But she had 38 acres. And she had a bus ticket's worth of money if she skipped meals for 2 days. She checked Greyhound routes. Los Angeles to Napa Valley, $67. She could make it. The shelter director let her leave the trash bags in storage. I'll hold them a month, she said. After that, we need the space. Simone boarded the bus with the deed in her pocket, a backpack with 2 changes of clothes, and no plan beyond seeing what Marguerite had left her. Through the window, Los Angeles blurred into highway, highway into farmland, farmland into rolling hills covered in vines. She got off in Napa Valley 3 days later. The address on the deed led her to a dirt road off Highway 29, past established wineries with pristine tasting rooms and manicured lawns, past her buses and wedding venues and signs advertising $200 bottles. At the end of the road, a rusted gate hung open. Beyond it, wild grass grew waist-high. And at the center of it all, like something from a dream, stood a stone chateau. It was small, nothing like Lawrence Inheritance, but it was unmistakably French. Weathered stone walls, arched windows, a tower on one corner. Vines had grown over the walls, wild and unpruned, their leaves golden in the afternoon sun. Simone walked through the grass to the front door. The key on the deed's key ring fit the lock. Inside, dust covered everything. Furniture sat under sheets. But the bones were beautiful. High ceilings, exposed beams, a massive fireplace. Through the back windows, she could see rows and rows of vines stretching toward the hills, overgrown but alive. On a table in the kitchen, Simone found another note. The vines are Cabernet Sauvignon, planted 1994. They've never been harvested commercially. The land has never been developed. Everyone said I was foolish. Show them what fools really look like. Simone walked outside into the vineyard. The vines were thick, gnarled, ancient by California standards. She didn't know anything about wine. She'd grown up in Paris, worked office jobs, married a man who drank craft beer. But she knew what it felt like to be called worthless. She pulled out her phone and Googled, "How much is vineyard land worth in Napa Valley?" The results made her hands shake. Simone sat in the overgrown vineyard, staring at her phone screen. Prime Napa Valley vineyard land, $250,000 to $500,000 per acre. She did the math 3 times, certain she'd made a mistake. 38 acres at even the low estimate meant she stopped calculating. The numbers were too big to feel real. A truck pulled up the drive, kicking up dust. Simone stood, suddenly aware she was trespassing, except she wasn't. She owned this. The deed in her pocket proved it. A man climbed out, 60s, weathered face, suspicious eyes. "This is private property." "I know. It's mine." Simone pulled out the deed. "I just inherited it." The man's expression shifted. "You're Marguerite's heir?" "Jesus. We heard she died." "I'm Tom Shun. I own the vineyard next door." "Well, my family does." "Your aunt and I were friendly." He looked at the chateau, the wild vines. "You planning to sell?" "I don't know. I just got here." Tom walked into the vineyard, running his hands over the vines. "These are old. Really old for California. Your aunt planted them in '94, grafted from French rootstock. Never sprayed them with half the chemicals everyone else uses. Never harvested them commercially. Said she was waiting for the right time." He looked at Simone. "You know anything about wine?" "Nothing." "You know anything about Napa Valley land values?" "I Googled it an hour ago." Tom laughed. "Then you know you're sitting on a fortune. Prime land, established vines, water rights. Developers would kill for this. You could sell tomorrow for 15, 20 million easy." Simone's knees went weak. 20 million? Easy. Probably more. Location like this close to Highway 29, with that chateau? He shook his head. But that'd be a waste. A waste. These vines. They've been growing for 30 years, never harvested. The fruit they produce. Tom pulled out his phone, showed her photos of grapes, deep purple, perfectly formed. That's from my vineyard. Good Cabernet. Sells wholesale for about $3,000 a ton. But your vines? Old growth, estate fruit, terroir like this? If you harvested and made wine, you could charge $100 a bottle prices. Maybe more. I don't know how to make wine. No, but I do. And I know people. Tom's eyes gleamed. Your aunt and I talked about this years ago. She wanted to wait until the vines were mature, until everything was perfect. She was planning to hire a winemaker, launch a label. But she got sick. Simone looked at the chateau, the vines, the land stretching toward the hills. $20 million. She could sell, take the money, start over. Get an apartment. Never work night shifts again. Never sleep in a shelter. But Marguerite's notes sat heavy in her pocket. Prove them wrong. What would it take? Simone asked. To make wine. Tom grinned. Money. Time. A winemaker who knows what they're doing. Harvest is in 8 weeks. You'd need to move fast, get the equipment, hire staff, get the vines assessed. He paused. You got funding? I have $43. Tom whistled. Yeah, that won't cover it. You're looking at $100,000 minimum to do this right. Equipment, labor, winemaking facilities. You'd need to partner with someone or take out a loan. Simone's stomach sank. I can't get a loan. I have no credit, no job, no. Or, Tom interrupted. You sell a portion of the land. Keep the core vineyard. Sell off 5 acres to a developer. That'd give you enough capital to run operations for a year, maybe 2. Sell part of it. 5 acres of this property, positioned right, could go for 2-3 million. You'd still have 33 acres and enough money to make wine. If the wine succeeds, you make your money back tenfold. If it fails, you still have land to sell. Simone walked through the vines, her mind racing. Laurent would laugh if he could see her now. The cousin who got the worthless vineyard tried to decide whether to sell pieces of her inheritance just to survive. But something about the vines, the way they'd grown wild but strong, the way they'd waited 30 years for someone to believe in them. How do I find a winemaker? Tom made calls. By sunset, Simone had met 3 potential partners. The first was dismissive. Old vines are romantic, but you need infrastructure. This place is a money pit. The second wanted to buy the whole property. The third was a woman named Ana Torres, mid-40s, with dirt under her fingernails and skepticism in her eyes. Ana walked the vineyard for an hour, barely speaking. She examined leaves, checked soil, tasted grapes straight from the vine. Finally, she turned to Simone. Your aunt knew what she was doing. These vines are exceptional. The fruit. She held up a cluster of grapes. This could make world-class wine, but it'd be a gamble. First vintage, unknown label, massive investment. You could lose everything. I've already lost everything, Simone said. This is just 38 acres someone gave me. Ana studied her. Tom said you want to sell 5 acres to fund operations. If I have to, don't. I have a better idea. Ana pulled out her phone, showed Simone photos of barrels, equipment, a warehouse. I've been making wine for other people for 15 years. I've got equipment, contacts, a facility. What I don't have is my own label, my own land. Partner with me. 50-50. I front the operational costs. You provide the fruit and the land. We make wine together. Why would you do that? Because vines like this come once in a lifetime. And because your aunt sent me a letter 2 years ago, before she got sick. She asked if I'd be willing to work with whoever inherited this place. Ana handed Simone a folded letter. Marguerite's handwriting. If Simone comes, help her. She's stronger than they think. Simone felt tears prick her eyes. Marguerite had planned this. All of it. If I say yes, what happens? Harvest in 8 weeks. Crush, fermentation, aging. We'd release the first vintage in 18 months. If it's as good as I think, we'd charge $150 a bottle minimum. If we produce 500 cases, that's $900,000 gross. Split 50-50, minus costs. You'd make maybe $200,000 your first year. And if it fails? You still own the land. You still have options. Ana extended her hand. But Simone? I don't think it'll fail. Simone shook her hand. Her phone buzzed, A text from Marcus. Heard you inherited some dirt in California. Good luck with that. You'll need it. She blocked his number and smiled. Subscribe now to follow Simone's journey, because what happens at harvest will shock everyone. Over the next 8 weeks, Simone learned to prune vines. She learned the difference between Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, learned to taste the potential in a grape before it became wine. She scrubbed floors in the chateau, clearing decades of dust. Anna's crew installed equipment, prepared fermentation tanks. Tom stopped by weekly, offering advice, sharing meals. Your aunt would have loved this, he said one evening, watching the sun set over the vines. She always said this land was special. Why didn't she harvest it herself? She was waiting for you. Didn't say it directly, but I knew. She talked about you sometimes. The niece in America, the one who translated her favorite books, who'd stayed kind even when the family turned cruel. He paused. She knew you'd need this. Harvest came in September. Anna's crew worked the rows, cutting clusters by hand, filling bins with fruit that glowed purple-black in the morning light. Simone worked alongside them, her hands cramping, her back aching, her heart full. The crush happened at Anna's facility. Simone watched grapes become juice, juice become wine. Anna monitored sugar levels, acidity, tannins. It's perfect, she kept saying. The fruit is absolutely perfect. The first fermentation tanks bubbled like something alive. 3 months later, Anna called Simone to the facility for a tasting. She poured wine into glasses, still young, still raw, but showing promise. Simone sipped. She didn't have Anna's trained palate, but even she could taste it. Depth, complexity, something extraordinary. We need to talk about pricing, Anna said. And marketing. And the name. The name. For the label. Domaine Rousseau is good, but we need something that tells the story. Something that says, this is special. Simone thought about Marguerite, about vines that waited 30 years, about women everyone underestimated. Heritage, she said. French for heritage. For inheritance. Anna smiled. Perfect. The wine critic's email arrived on a Tuesday, 10 months after harvest. Ms. Rousseau, I'd like to feature your debut vintage in Wine Spectator's Emerging Vintners issue. Would you be available for an interview and tasting? Simone read it 3 times before showing Anna, who was in the vineyard checking new growth. Anna grabbed her phone, scrolled through the email, and let out a whoop that scared the birds from the vines. Do you understand what this means? Wine Spectator doesn't cover nobodies. They don't waste column inches on maybes. She grabbed Simone's shoulders. Someone talked. Someone important tasted our wine and told them to pay attention. The tasting happened 2 weeks later at the chateau, which Simone had slowly transformed from ruin to working winery. The critic, James Rothman, silver-haired and intimidating, arrived with an assistant carrying camera equipment. Show me everything, he said. The vines, the chai, the story. Simone walked him through the vineyard. She explained Marguerite's 30-year patience, the decision to partner rather than sell, the first harvest. Rothman took notes, asked pointed questions, examined vine leaves like they held secrets. In the barrel room, a converted stone outbuilding, Anna poured samples. Rothman swirled, sniffed, tasted. His face revealed nothing. He spat, made notes, tasted again. Finally, this is remarkable. The structure, the balance, the depth. This tastes like a vineyard 3 times its age. He looked at Simone. What are you planning to charge? $150 a bottle, Anna said. 500 case production. Rothman laughed. You're underpricing. This is $200 wine minimum. Maybe $250. He made more notes. I'm scoring this 94 points. For a debut vintage from an unknown estate, that's almost unheard of. Simone felt her knees weaken. 94. You've made something special here, Ms. Rousseau. The article runs in 6 weeks. I'd suggest you prepare for demand. The article hit like a bomb. Wine Spectator's headline, the $389 million vineyard that almost became condos. Rothman had done his research. He found the property assessments, the developer interest, the fact that Simone could have sold for $20 million and walked away. Instead, she'd gambled on grapes. The article quoted his tasting notes. Heritage Cabernet Sauvignon is a masterclass in restraint and power. Dark fruit, forest floor, hints of tobacco, and leather. This is a wine that will age beautifully for 20 years, but drinks beautifully now. At $200 a bottle, it's a steal. Score, 94 points. But it was the human interest angle that made the article go viral. Rothman had interviewed not just Simone, but Tom, Anna, even the shelter director who'd stored Simone's trash bags. He'd pieced together the whole story. The divorce, the inheritance everyone mocked, the choice to build instead of sell. Simone's phone exploded. Restaurants wanted to buy cases. Collectors wanted allocations. A distributor in New York offered to take their entire production at $250 a bottle. Anna fielded calls while Simone sat in the chateau's kitchen, overwhelmed. "We're sold out," Anna said, hanging up with a San Francisco buyer. 500 cases gone. And we have a waiting list of 2,000 names for next year's vintage. That's, at $250 a bottle, 12 bottles per case. That's $1.5 million gross. After production costs, distributor cuts, your share is about $400,000. Anna sat down, laughing. And that's just year one. Simone, we're a success. The money changed things, but not the way Simone expected. She didn't buy a mansion or a car. She paid off the shelter with a $50,000 donation. She hired the shelter director's daughter as her assistant. She set up a scholarship fund for women escaping bad marriages. The Vineyard grew. The second vintage produced 800 cases. The third, 1,200. Heritage became known for elegant, age-worthy Cabernet that respected its French roots while embracing California sunshine. Wine critics made pilgrimages. Restaurants fought for allocations. 5 years after that first harvest, Simone stood in the vineyard during crush, watching workers fill bins with perfect fruit. Her phone buzzed, a text from a block number that had somehow gotten through. She hadn't thought about Marcus in months. What she thought about instead, the new fermentation barn they were building, the expansion plans. Anna wanted to add Chardonnay, maybe a Bordeaux blend. The fact that last week, a property assessor had valued Domaine Rousseau at $389 million. Land, improvements, brand value, inventory, everything. Laurent had emailed once, 2 years ago. "Heard your little wine hobby is doing well. Good for you." She'd never responded. Celine had liked an Instagram photo once. Amelie hadn't made contact. Simone didn't care. She'd built something they couldn't understand, not because they weren't smart, but because they'd never had to. They'd inherited money. She'd inherited potential. Tom walked up the vineyard rows, carrying 2 glasses of water. At 72, he'd become Simone's mentor, friend, surrogate father. Harvest looks good. Better than good. Anna thinks this might be our best vintage yet. Your aunt would be proud. Tom handed her water. "I never told you this, but Marguerite knew. Before she died, she knew the vineyard was worth millions. The land alone, she had it assessed. She could have sold it herself, died rich, left you all cash." Simone stared at him. "Why didn't she?" "Because cash wouldn't have saved you. It would have been a bandage. This," he gestured at the vines, the chateau, the workers moving through rows. "This gave you a reason. Purpose. A chance to prove you weren't what your ex-husband said you were." Simone felt tears well. "She gave me myself back. She gave you a choice. You made the right one." That evening, Simone hosted a harvest dinner in the chateau. Anna brought her family. Tom brought his children and grandchildren. The workers who'd pruned and harvested and crushed joined them. They ate at long tables under string lights, drinking wine they'd made together. Simone stood to make a toast. 5 years ago, I had nothing. A failed marriage, $43, and a deed to land everyone said was worthless. I slept in a shelter. I thought my life was over." She raised her glass. "But my aunt knew something I've forgotten. That worth isn't what other people assign you. It's what you build when they're not looking." To Marguerite. To second chances. To proving them wrong. Everyone drank. Anna pulled Simone aside after. "I have news. A buyer from Hong Kong wants to purchase the brand. Not the land, just heritage. They're offering $200 million. Simone didn't hesitate. "No. You didn't even think about it. I don't need to. This isn't for sale. Not the brand. Not the land. Not any of it." Simone looked at the vineyard, the vines she'd learned to tend, the wine they'd made together. "This is mine. Finally, something is mine." Anna smiled. "Good. Because I'd have killed you if you'd said yes." Later, alone in the chateau, Simone walked through rooms she'd restored. The library where Marguerite's books now lived, the office where she planned each vintage, the bedroom where she slept peacefully for the first time in years. On her desk sat Marguerite's final note, framed, They will tell you it's worthless. Prove them wrong. Simone had. Not by selling for millions, but by building something worth more than money. A life that was hers. Work that mattered. Wine that brought people joy. A legacy that would outlast gossip and judgment and dismissal. Her phone buzzed. The shelter director. One of our women is asking about work. Agricultural experience preferred. Thought of you. Simone smiled and typed back. Send her tomorrow. We're always hiring. She walked outside into the vineyard under stars, the vines whispering in the night breeze. Somewhere in France, Laurent lived in a chateau he hadn't earned. Celine wore jewelry she'd never appreciated. Amélie drove cars she'd never maintained. And Simone? Simone had 38 acres of proof that being underestimated was sometimes the greatest gift of all. The vines had waited 30 years. So had she, in a way, waited to find out who she was when nobody was telling her. Waited to discover that strength wasn't loud or obvious. It was quiet, patient, deep-rooted, just like Cabernet Sauvignon, just like Marguerite had known all along. Simone walked back to the chateau, to the life she'd built from dirt and determination, and knew exactly what she was worth. Everything.